How do you steal half a ton of classified documents from the most guarded facility in Tehran and vanish before sunrise? The official reports say it happened, but no one ever agreed on how. Some say Mossad operatives walked through the front doors. Others claim the Iranians let them. The truth, buried in fragments and after-action whispers, is far stranger. Because what took place over 6.5 hours in 2018 began as a logistical impossibility, and it started with one mistake that no one noticed until too late. Aitan had run undercover operations before, surveillance dead drops in Oman, courier relays in Istanbul. But this was different. Tehran wasn't a battlefield, it was a labyrinth. Cameras, license plate scanners, randomized patrols, a city that punished hesitation harder than failure. He adjusted his watch to 1:45 a.m., and watched the second hand struggle under fluorescent light. The van was packed tight. 5 men, 1 woman, the scent of machine oil suffocating the air. None carried phones, none carried names. Every piece of communication went through a one-way relay codenamed Mirror. The driver killed the headlights. Engine heat shimmered off warehouse metal ahead. Unmarked gates, double fences. The tire tracks on the gravel looked fresh. Too fresh, like someone else had already been there. Aitan noted it, but said nothing. Their briefing described the site as dormant, a shell facility used to store decommissioned nuclear files. But the satellite image he'd memorized 2 weeks earlier hadn't shown the third guard tower. That appeared this morning. Risk 1, the floor plan was out of date. Risk 2, no radio contact after 200. They couldn't go back. And they couldn't confirm either risk. They only had 6 hours before first light and an extraction corridor that would close without warning. Aitan checked the woman beside him. Noah. Compact frame, calm pulse, quiet competence. She would handle internal sensors and biometric locks. She had a scar across her left index finger, from a training blade years earlier. She said it helped her remember the margin between precision and certainty. 2 minutes, the driver said. Aitan replayed the key points in his head. Enter through the service wing, breach no more than 2 interior zones, locate 30 classified vaults, extract verified physical samples, destroy nothing. No explosions, no trace. What no one had told him was why the order came now. The archive had been sitting untouched for years. Something must have changed, politically, diplomatically, maybe technologically. But that silence from Tel Aviv weighed heavier than the mission brief. The van stopped alongside a narrow access gate. The hinges were new, still silver. Nearby, 2 cameras blinked on alternating rhythms, redundant loops. Somewhere, a remote operator in Rana Center would be watching. Aitan unlatched the side door. Night air stung. They moved in pairs, tools wrapped in lead fabric to mask their shape. He used a standard keycard for the first barrier. The scanner hesitated, showing Persian script before flashing green. The delay was half a second, maybe less, but it was enough to shave at his composure. Nothing about this building felt neglected. They entered the outer corridor, bare concrete, ammonia smell, faint hum of air handlers humming deep underground. Every few meters, a recessed lens followed motion. Noah worked on disabling them one by one, using a coded signal loop delivered over infrared. 4 down, then 5. The 6th refused to cycle. Skip it, she said. The 6th lens blinked twice before freezing to black. Aitan moved forward, sweat gathering under his collar though the air was cold. In the second corridor, a fingerprint panel waited beside reinforced doors. Aitan pressed a synthetic print patch against it. The door opened slower than expected. Inside, industrial shelving lined the walls. Not documents, machinery, electrical parts, boxes labeled only with serial numbers. He realized then that the place might be more than a document vault. It might still be active. A single overhead bulb flickered behind them. The sound was too sharp. Someone had switched power lines. Noah froze. "We're late," she said quietly. And that wasn't in the brief either. The patrol rotation must have shifted. The team split. 3 headed toward the primary safes. Aitan led Noah toward the sub-level. They carried thermal lances and polymer bags designed to reduce electrostatic discharge. Each minute mattered. Each sound felt irreversible. The air underground turned heavy, metallic, warm. Aitan crouched near the first safe. It wasn't one safe, It was 2 welded units, false, plated into a single wall cavity. He ran his palm over the cold surface, counting micro-drilled dots along the edge. Heat sensors, unmapped. Noah looked at him. Bypass or shut? Bypass. That'll trigger the thermal grid. We don't have time. He started cutting anyway. The instrument hummed, narrow beam of blue-white heat. Minutes fell away in fragments. The smell of burning metal layered over dust. At 02:27, somewhere on the surface, a motorcycle engine revved, one sound where there should have been none. The guard patrol, early again, maybe random, maybe not. They still had 31 safes sealed. Eitan pressed the intercom switch on his wristband but received only static. Mirror, network, silent. Risk 3, command blackout. He couldn't even warn the others that the patrol schedule had collapsed. The first lock gave way. Inside, rows of faded folders, hand-labeled in Persian, notes, drawings, equations. It took him seconds to realize what he was holding. Research files for what should have been dismantled a decade earlier. He stared too long. Noah hissed that they had to move. Each folder took precious time. Each second drained their narrow window. The safe was filled not with one project, but with many. He stuffed the first batch into polymer bags, sealing them tight while sweat trickled down his neck. Then a faint electrical hum reached him from the far end of the corridor. Lights rippled on. The entire row of safes lit up with green diodes, active status. Noah froze mid-step. Why are they powered? He didn't answer. Power implied monitoring. But they'd confirmed this site as archived storage, not a live research node. Someone in Tehran had reclassified the building between the last satellite sweep and tonight's entry. The diodes blinked again, faster. They hadn't triggered them by heat. The system was cycling normally. That meant somebody else had access tonight. Their presence wasn't an anomaly, it was an overlap. Eitan walked back to the corridor entrance, checking his exit markers. The side gate indicator on his compass flickered red, signal interference. "We've got another team inside," he said quietly. Noah stared at the floor tiles. Boot prints, fresh, different tread. Not theirs. That changed everything. If the Iranians had personnel inside, their extraction path was compromised. But if not, if it was another unit, then who? He looked at his watch. 02:41. Their extraction convoy would arrive in 4 hours. Too long to wait, too short to reschedule. He took one steadying breath. We keep going. The hum deepened. 3 more safes powered on by themselves. Noah began resetting her scrambler to mask heat signatures. And we don't even know how many of them are here. Eitan said nothing. Somewhere under his ribs he felt the first tight burn of doubt, not fear, but the slow realization that their perfect plan was already tearing along invisible seams. The second door opened without authorization. Air shifted. A faint trace of cologne hung in the corridor. Iranian, maybe Russian. Someone had just walked these floors within the last hour. He touched the scar beneath his sleeve. His own reminder that plans fail where assumptions begin. The silence folded around them like weight. If another unit was inside, whose mission overlapped theirs? And how long before one of them realized the other didn't belong? The hum, coming from the safes, deepened until it became a low vibration through the floor. Eitan dropped to one knee and pressed his palm against the concrete. A steady rhythm, intermittent pulses, mechanical yet deliberate. This wasn't a power fault. Something was cycling. He moved closer to the first open safe. A thin cable ran behind the inner hinge, too fine to be standard. He sliced it with his knife and spotted the stamp, IRGC Technical Intelligence Division. Their assumptions about the archive collapsed in an instant. Now, this wasn't an abandoned repository. It was an active surveillance node built to look like one. A hidden sensor network, embedded in each vault. Anyone opening them would automatically log access to a remote database, flagging classified tampering. Every second they kept these doors open was potentially another second on an alarm feed they couldn't see. Noah stared at the cable remains. "This isn't residual security," she said, voice low. "It's live monitoring." Eitan's throat went dry. How many safes? All of them. The realization struck like cold steel. Mossad hadn't breached an archive. They had walked into a monitoring array disguised as one. If Tehran ran this as bait to identify foreign penetrations, They were now fingerprinted on Iranian servers in real time. Noah started working through her scrambler, trying to jam outbound signals. Her hands moved precisely, but her breath came faster. The frequency spread was too wide. "I can't block all of it," she said. Eitan checked the last signal from mirror, the interface still flickering faint static. Maybe Command already knows. Or maybe we've been dark longer than they realize. Their conversation dissolved into silence again. Only the whine of cutting tools from the far corridor filled the void. Raz and his crew were still drilling. Eitan thought of the instruction buried halfway down in their mission brief. Retrieve primary material. Destroy nothing. The order made no sense if the data was already active, already transmitting. He glanced at Noah. "Do we keep collecting until we're told not to? What if not to never comes?" For the first time, she hesitated. She was the operative known for unflinching execution, yet the weight of her pause pressed like an accusation. Down the hall, a spark shot from the cutting torch. Raz's voice echoed faintly. The words distorted. Vault 2 open. Moving to 3. No alarm yet, nothing audible. But the silence felt deceptive, like an airway before suffocation. The mid-level corridor flickered again, this time completely by design. Emergency lamps engaged on a 5-second delay, testing cycle. The lights weren't controlled locally. That meant remote operators were awake. Someone external was watching system integrity. Noah broke the silence. "They've seen it." Eitan nodded once, barely perceptible. They had triggered surveillance long ago, maybe the moment that first lock lagged a half-second near the entry gate. The outpost would take time to react, but response was already unfolding somewhere above ground, in slow concentric lines moving toward them. He touched the earpiece again. "Mirror, this is Delta 3, status check." Static answered, and he tried again, this time switching to analog fallback. A voice came through, fragmented, metallic, Tel Aviv compression stuttering. "Copy partial, proceed contingency 2. Then silence. Noah frowned. Contingency 2 is abort. Eitan stared at the safes, at the half-filled polymer bags, at the months of planning that had brought them here. Abort meant leaving everything, including the information they came to find, behind. Contingency 2 also required complete sterilization of physical presence, a code phrase that always sounded sterile in briefings until you remembered it meant burning evidence, destroying local assets, even self. "Command doesn't have picture integrity," he said. "They can't see what's here. They don't need to. Abort means exit. If this was a trap, we're already logged. Leaving now changes nothing." She looked at him, and staying could change everything worse. For a few seconds, neither moved. Raz's team clattered metal on metal behind the partition. Somewhere, a timer ticked against the hum of generators. Eitan walked to the nearest safe and lifted out more folders. Heavy, stained, labeled with months and years. One stamped with chemical analysis data, another with diagrams for implosion devices. If forged, they were elaborate, too deliberate, too patterned. "This is what we came for," he said quietly. Noah pressed her lips together. "And if it's what they want us to find?" Her words landed deeper than accusation. They carried the first hairline fracture of doubt that would divide the team later. Eitan rubbed his eyes. "We move half load, anything digital gets left. That's not protocol, neither is trap entry." She didn't argue further. She worked faster instead. Gathering, sealing, numbering. The rhythm of it was mechanical, almost desperate. By 0310, they had cleared 7 vaults. Raz reported one jammed hinge at Vault 8. The drill cutter failed mid-slice. Eitan left Noah for a moment and climbed back up the stairwell. Inside Vault 8, the air smelled of burnt lubricant. One of the operatives was kneeling, trying to pry a wedge free. The torque snapped metal with a sharp crack. A shard flew across Eitan's glove, scoring the fabric. He checked the timer, too slow. He told them to abandon the jammed safe. But Raz insisted. "We've come this far. 1 more minute." The sound of the drill echoed like heartbeat against steel. Then silence. The hinge released. Inside, a transparent folder lay detached from all others, sealed in polymer, thicker than the rest. Eitan stared. Each contained microfilm negatives labeled in Farsi code groups, too old for active research yet deliberately preserved. He examined one label, Mass Cascade/Peripheral Control. That wasn't storage data, it was operational reference. 4 functioning equipment. Another assumption shattered. These weren't obsolete files, they were recently augmented to catalog the state's continued nuclear groundwork. The archive was both historical and active. He understood then why retrieval mattered. Maybe this wasn't bait after all. Maybe it was contingency evidence Tehran assumed no one could ever reach. But confirmation required getting the material out. He took a breath. We pull these and go. Raz looked at him. What about contingency 2? Officially, we never heard it. That was the moment the fracture sealed into defiance. They repacked, moving faster, carrying crates toward the secondary corridor. Sweating under layers of sterile fabric, Eitan felt heat rising from below ground. The temperature sensors Noah tampered with earlier were recalibrating themselves, attempting self-diagnostics. Within minutes, they would flag environmental irregularities directly to central control. Noah rejoined them, breath short. Infrared sweep coming online, she said. The air shifted, light waves faintly visible on every surface, red arcs crawling across walls. Mirror blackout complete. A clipped voice came over the channel. If you're still in the building, extraction vectors will close. The transmission wasn't Tel Aviv, the accent was wrong. Eitan's spine tightened. Identify. No response. That's not command, Noah said. Then who is it? The interference deepened. The same voice repeated the line, slower this time, as if rewound and replayed from an old analog deck. If you're still in the building, extraction vectors will close. Raz stepped back from the crates. Could be looped channel. Could be Iranian intercept mimicking mirror. Either way, Eitan said, someone wants us to believe we've already lost extraction. Doubt fractured through them like current through water. Raz suggested staging the material in hidden caches inside Tehran to reclaim later. Noah insisted they withdraw immediately before air patrols began grid search. Eitan weighed both arguments while the safes behind them continued cycling. A heartbeat that didn't belong to any of them. We'll hold for 30 minutes, he decided. Then reassess. Noah stared at him, incredulous. Hold? While a remote system pings our coordinates? That voice isn't command. If it's an intercept, somebody outside Iranian control could be watching. If it's ours, we get confirmation. And if it's neither, then we'll know in 30 minutes. He barely finished the sentence when the entire floor shuddered. A power surge rolled through the complex like thunder without sound. The overhead LEDs burst into white light, blinding. Emergency speakers clicked, then a flat, mechanical alert tone. No voice, no announcement, just that tone repeating. 6 seconds between pulses. Noah gripped the handles of the nearest crate. They've isolated the sector. You said we had 30 minutes. That was 30 minutes ago. The irony cut through the static. Somewhere above them, automatic steel shutters sealed the outer exits. Air pressure shifted as ventilation closed. Eitan tapped his comm again. Still blank. He could almost feel their extraction convoy waiting beyond the city limits, blind to what was happening below ground. They moved into the access tunnel linking to the southern exit, carrying half the loaded archives. Behind them, Raz sealed vault doors manually, one by one, buying minutes. The red lights dimmed once more, then flickered back. But this time they weren't synchronized. Some glowed green, some orange. Noah whispered that it meant compartmentalized failover. Only a central operator could trigger such variants. Someone was manually overriding the alarm structure, not local AI defense. So they know we're inside, she said. Eitan shook his head. Or worse, they're deciding how long to let us stay. Everything inside him tightened around that revelation. The sensors hadn't alerted an external force yet because the operators weren't ready. This wasn't detection, it was observation. They were being studied, their timing measured, their methods recorded. The operation's danger wasn't just exposure, it was data theft inverted. They weren't taking information, they were providing it. Eitan looked back toward the dark corridor of safes, each still humming faintly. In another life, he might have admired the symmetry, the thieves becoming the surveillance subjects. But here, with the exit path unstable and the weight of the crates against their shoulders, no metaphor mattered. We move now, he said finally. Noah looked at him, eyes sharp and tired. And after we move? He didn't answer, because he didn't know whether withdrawal still meant survival or simply a quieter form of capture. Behind them, the safes switched off all at once, not by command input, but as if someone had unplugged the heart of the building itself. The hum died, leaving a silence to complete. Aitan forced his breath steady. His last thought before crossing the threshold into the lower exit corridor was simple and brutal. If someone else had been inside when they entered, were those other operatives still here now, or had they already left something waiting for them to find on the way out? The passage ahead narrowed into a low concrete throat. The air smelled of ozone and damp dust. Aitan walked first, one hand on the rough wall, the other clutching his sidearm he hoped never to use. Behind him, Noah carried the first crate. Raz and two others dragged the heavier load. The hum of machinery had vanished, replaced by the sound of their own movement, their breath bouncing back at them. They advanced 50 meters before the tunnel split. One path rose upward toward the service level. The other bent downward into deeper maintenance channels mapped only partially in their briefing. Noah checked her compass. "North access should lead to power junction," she said. "That's exit?" Raz asked. It was. Aitan studied the concrete. The floor sloped wrong. The architects had disguised direction. North was an illusion. He knelt to test a recent crack by the wall, still damp, still new. A construction update must have redirected tunnels months ago. "We've been following an old map," he said finally. Raz exhaled through his teeth. "So we're lost." "Not yet, just misaligned." The distinction made no one feel better. They pushed on through the lower tunnel, reasoning that power conduits might still trace a path to the southern access grid. 10 meters in, their lights flashed red against something metallic ahead. The structure resembled a blast door, heavy, unfamiliar, and absent from their digiplans. Aitan touched the latch. It was warm. Too warm to be a long sealed exit. "Active circuit," Noah said. "If power's flowing, something beyond it's still running," Aitan answered. "Could be generator exhaust." Raz shook his head. Or guards. The possibility hung there until it gained gravity. They had heard no movement from above, but that didn't mean quiet equaled empty. A silent facility might just be waiting. Aitan decided to open the first seal. The lever resisted, then gave with a slow jerk. A rush of cold air swept over them. Beyond the door, an empty loading bay lit by emergency strobes, scattered with packing materials and the skeleton of a conveyor system. He stepped inside, scanning for heat signatures. Nothing visible. Noah followed, relief almost imperceptible in her shoulders. Safe for now. They positioned the first crate near the base of the ramp leading out toward the surface hatch, and the plan was to load them into the secondary transport truck left under decoy registration near the southern boundary. From there, 30 minutes to the border. The timing monologue inside Aitan's mind began again. Calculated pace, oxygen use, distance count. But the math refused to align. The convoy had been instructed to stand by for final signal. Without mirror connection, that signal had never gone out. Each minute they delayed outside the network tightened the window closer to sunrise. "We can't proceed blind," Noah said. "Extraction might not even be in position." Raz snapped open a portable beacon. "If we light this, they'll see it." Aitan hesitated. "And so will the Iranians." The indecision stretched in the air. Every calculation led to the same risk, exposure versus absence. Fail safe, fail loud, or fail unseen. Noah spoke first. "If we stay, the patrols will corner us here. The only advantage we still have is pattern confusion. Meaning, if they don't know which corridor we used, they can't respond correctly. You're assuming they haven't sealed the grid already. I'm assuming we matter less to them than the data we touched." That was the wrong sentence to hear right then. Everyone froze on its meaning. Maybe the reason Iranians hadn't stormed the building yet was because physical capture wasn't necessary. Maybe they already had the broadcast logs transmitting everything Mossad read, touched, or disturbed. The goal might no longer be to stop them, but to track them. Aitan swallowed dryness, feeling heat climb behind his ears. "We move anyway. If they're watching, let them." He lifted the crate again. They crossed the bay and found the surface hatch control panel behind a maintenance cabinet. Noah entered the override code, 8 digits memorized from Tel Aviv's briefing. Nothing happened. She tried again, slower, deliberate, still nothing. Raz struck the panel. Dead. Manual release, Aiton said. They located the crank beneath the steel plate and started unwinding. The first spin worked smoothly. The second jammed halfway. Aiton glanced upward. A hairline rift between the door and the frame revealed a pale light above. Dawn? No, impossible. Too early. Then the light flickered and moved. Flashlight beam. Someone's up there, Noah said. All movement froze. The light lingered, then vanished. No voices followed. Raz whispered, could be perimeter guard. Aiton shook his head slowly. The movement pattern's wrong. That was reconnaissance, not patrol. Another team. He thought of the sound earlier, those boot prints, the cologne, the way lights had been severed in staggered pattern. Whatever or whoever had occupied the site before or during their entry might still be working parallel. They might be external assets, Noah suggested cautiously. Friendly flank? He almost laughed. No one's friendly here tonight. They stood under the sealed hatch, debating whether to wait. The air felt tighter by the minute. Aiton considered the worst. Someone else had reached extraction first, impersonating their signal, driving their escape vehicle straight into an ambush route. He almost said it aloud, but stopped. Words made danger solid. Raz checked his phone's offline timer. 4 hours since breach. The mission's planned duration had already expired. They were ghosts on borrowed minutes. Let's use the western corridor, Aiton said suddenly. If the other team's above us, we'll flank to their blind side. The decision sounded practical, confident. He even believed it for 2 steps. Then came the shock of second error. The western corridor wasn't mapped for pedestrian exit. It connected to sewage filtration, home to low oxygen, high heat, unsafe under pressure. He remembered this too late. Still, momentum pushed him forward. The air thickened with chemical tang. Pipes groaned. They crawled through, crates bumping the walls. At a bend, Aiton paused, his foot striking something soft. It slid, fabric rubbing metal. A duffel bag. He reached down and unzipped it. Inside, tools, adhesives, electronic key drills. Not theirs. Recent use. So there had been another team. Noah leaned over. Same model cutter. Aiton replied quietly, except battery warm. That meant whoever used it had left minutes ago. They pressed onward. After 20 more meters, the tunnel forked again. To the left, airflow. Faint smell of diesel. Possibly open air beyond. To the right, silence but drier path. Aiton chose left, following smell of engines. Raz murmured something indistinct about oxygen ratios. The tunnel emerged behind a grated wall. Beyond, the sky peeled into dull gray, morning creeping up the horizon. Time had folded faster than he thought. They reached the fence. The trucks should have been there, waited under false license, engine cold. But nothing. The asphalt lay empty, only tire impressions. They left, Raz said, or were taken. Noah scanned the ground. The tire tracks were deeper near the ditch. Someone had loaded extra weight. Maybe even their missing colleagues. Aiton tried radio one last time. Static. He changed frequency. A pulse answered, single tone repeating every 5 seconds. Not command, not human. Signal jammer, Noah said, mobile type. So Iranian security was awake. But how local? The pulse pattern was too clean. Maybe not Army, maybe Intelligence Division. Aiton rubbed fatigue from his face. We go dark. They dragged the crates across the ditch toward an abandoned construction zone where concrete boundaries offered partial cover. The city glowed distant behind industrial haze. Every rooftop seemed to stare back. For several minutes, silence. Nothing moved, no drones, no guards, just wind. The stillness offered a rare illusion of escape. False calm. They settled behind a broken scaffold. Noah checked her watch and murmured, "Extraction missed window. Next relay in 90 minutes. If we wait, we might sink." Aiton barely heard her. His thoughts drifted backward, to the moment he ignored the abort order and said officially, "We never heard it." The phrase now rang like a weight around his throat. Leadership in Tel Aviv would call it field autonomy. History would call it misjudgment. He thought he smelled rain. It wasn't. It was oil exhaust, faint but growing stronger. Raz clenched his weapon. Truck. Headlights approached slowly from the highway. Civilian-looking pickup, black tarp. License unreadable. The driver flickered lights twice and stopped. Could be hours. Noah whispered. Could be theirs, Eitan said. They watched, breath held, waiting for the pattern, 2 long, 1 short, the Mossad identification blink. The truck repeated the same sequence but inverted. Incorrect assumption, set like stone. Mirror orientation reversed itself in Iranian territory because of left-hand regulations. In every Mossad training manual, that detail existed precisely to prevent foreign recognition errors. Eitan had forgotten. That's our signal, he said, certainty cutting through exhaustion. Noah frowned. You sure? It's backward. Direction mirrors south of Tehran district were north. It fits. She didn't argue, but unease lingered. They hauled the crates, staggering under their weight, across the asphalt toward the stopped truck. The driver wore cap and surgical mask, face obscured. He opened the rear latch. Inside, black containers lined the floor. Eitan asked him a verification phrase. The driver nodded, correctly completing it. Proof enough. They loaded 2 crates. Third halfway, when Noah caught sight of the insignia on the truck's inner door, a serial string beginning with TIR-45A, Iranian military logistics prefix. Eitan, stop, too late. The driver pressed a switch near his console. The truck lights cut. Siren blurts screamed from distant towers. Raz dropped his crate. Everyone scattered from habit, diving to ground. Behind them, the truck exploded in bursts of light. Not bullets, but flash charges designed for disorientation. The decoy vehicle, a setup waiting for confirmation, to identify any intruders carrying specific-sized crates. Eitan rolled behind debris, eyes boiling from a white flash. He heard shouting in Farsi but couldn't distinguish words. He tasted grit. Beside him, Noah crawled to cover, shoulders heaving. We're blown, she said. Then we vanish. He triggered his last failsafe beacon, chemical fuse arranged to burn digital surfaces beyond recovery. The few crates nearby ignited, black smoke rising. Raz attempted radio one last time on fallback encryption. To everyone's shock, it connected, brief, pulsing connection, convoy 2 east of city. Visual contact lost. They're still out there, Raz said. Or this is intercept bait again. Noah pointed east. We can't stay. Eitan nodded. We go on foot. They ran under flickering lights. Sirens crescendoed behind. But the chaos had its utility. The same Iranian security triggered multiple false alarms by accident, confused by overlapping signals. They slipped into an old canal trench running parallel to the highway. Water shallow, smell awful, but concealment near perfect. A step after step, the world reduced to mud and heartbeat. The noise behind them faded gradually. When it finally died, they slowed. The night returned to silence, and it felt heavier than gunfire. For a moment, the illusion returned. Peace. A false release draped carefully across exhaustion. Eitan allowed himself one deep exhale. The mission had fractured beyond recovery. At least they were alive. Maybe that was enough. Then, as if the silence wanted to punish him for believing it, a voice whispered from somewhere down the trench ahead. English accent, neutral tone. We've been waiting. Flashlights cut on, 3 of them. Silhouettes forming in the mist. Eitan froze. Whoever these people were, they used their own extraction code. The false calm disintegrated instantly. He gripped the damp side of the trench, pulse roaring between temples. One thought circled back, cruel and simple. If they had been watched since the vault opened, maybe this was the real objective. Not the archive, not the data, but watching how Mossad operatives tried to escape when there was no route left. The trench turned soundless after the lights cut. Eitan didn't fire. Neither did the figures ahead. They stood at equal distance in the thin fog, 3 lengths apart. The lead man lowered his beam first, speaking in practiced Hebrew. You're out of zone. The words cracked something inside Eitan. Not threat, confirmation. Mossad met its own inside the dark. Convoy 2? He asked. The stranger didn't answer. Just motioned toward the embankment. Up. They climbed out, slick with mud. A black, unmarked van waited under a railway bridge, engine idling. 2 more men inside. No markings, no identification. The air smelled of ammonia and diesel. Raz hesitated to board. Credentials? The lead man handed over a sealed foil card, Mossad division imprint, authentic down to texture. Noah verified the code, eyes narrow, but Eitan noticed the expiry date, 2 years prior. He didn't correct her, Not then. He let them all climb in. Better to move than argue. The van drove without headlights, hugging side roads through the fringes of southern Tehran. Each a kilometer stretched, tightening around silence. Eitan watched sweat bead down the driver's neck, steady rhythm of control, too calm. Maybe real, maybe rehearsed. 30 minutes in, the transmission jammer faded. A radio somewhere pinged back to life. The lead man spoke a brief code string and nodded. Checkpoint clear, you're done. But done had no meaning anymore. Eitan sat in the corner with his remaining crate. It was half full, folders smeared with mud, pages warped. Noah leaned against the opposite wall, eyes unfocused. None of them asked the question aloud. If extraction this smooth existed, why hadn't it triggered earlier? Why the isolation? Why 6 hours of chaos? When they finally reached the airfield outside the capital, an old cargo plane waited under tarp. No lights, only the sound of turbines warming. They loaded the box themselves. No one welcomed them back. During climb out, Eitan tried one last time to reach command. The line opened briefly, distorted. Ops director said 2 words before disconnecting. Loss confirmed. Loss confirmed. He didn't ask what that meant. He already guessed. The operative teams embedded in Tehran's courier system, the ones forwarding electronic intel caches, were likely compromised the moment those safes lit up. Tehran would have traced relay nodes immediately. Every digital ghost Mossad used in the city had turned to heat signature overnight. He thought again of his decision to keep going after the abort signal, the defiance he called necessity. It was never heroics, it was disbelief. The refusal to accept mission design might be flawed. Now that disbelief had a body count. By the time they landed in an undisclosed base west of Haifa, Tel Aviv had already evacuated cover networks across 3 countries. Intelligence lines in Lebanon, Azerbaijan, and even neutral Turkey went dark in synchronized blackout. One operation had collapsed half a decade of groundwork. The debrief was sterile. Eitan spoke for 4 hours behind one-way glass. The analysts asked for times, voltages, heat differentials. They never asked how it felt to watch the line between certainty and error dissolve in real time. You did your job, one supervisor told him. What we have is priceless. They meant the partial archive, the surviving half of those recovered documents. The data proved beyond doubt that Iran maintained a contingency for nuclear weaponization under civilian disguise. It would justify diplomatic leverage, shape international policy, maybe even save Israel from global isolation. But Eitan knew the ledger never balanced like that. Because Priceless had a list of names attached, cover identities that would never answer again. 2 months later, retaliatory purges rolled through Iran's scientific community. Dozens dismissed, several vanished. Tehran's public stance grew harsher. Iran denied the theft, then later weaponized it, calling it evidence of Israeli aggression, turning exposure into propaganda. The revelation, meant to check nuclear ambition, instead accelerated national resolve. The mission had retrieved truth, and in doing so, reinforced secrecy's necessity. In quiet moments, Eitan sat outside the operations compound and replayed the trench escape, the voice greeting them, the foil card with expired code. He never confirmed whether the extraction van was genuine or manufactured by another hand entirely. That uncertainty became its own haunting. The mission may have ended, but he was never sure who brought them home. The files moved from attempt to secure to classified leverage. Politicians repackaged them into headlines. Analysts built careers upon them. But within Mossad halls, the operation grew quieter in retelling. It existed less as triumph, more as threshold, the night the agency proved how exposure could masquerade as achievement. Noah resigned 6 months later. She cited exhaustion. In truth, she had sent a single coded message to field assets before losing mirror connection that night, a message Mossad intercepted days later in encrypted relay, its route traced through Tehran's Ministry of Intelligence servers. Her warning might have revealed their location, or perhaps Tehran simply monitored every outgoing line. Either way, she carried the weight in silence. Raz never spoke again about Vault 8, the one safe that had contained microfilm labeled Mass Cascade. Later audits determined the negatives were indeed genuine, but portions of the frame missing. He'd handled it directly before destruction order. Whether he lost a piece or withheld it, no one proved. A year later, he vanished from field rosters, presumed under new identity or worse. Institutional cost arrived subtler than arrests. Fear replaced clarity. Every future mission underwent triple verification cycles, creating paralysis disguised as precision. Leadership praised discipline, though everyone knew it masked distrust. When a camera failed during a subsequent operation in Damascus, command waited hours for confirmation rather than act on instinct. They'd learned too well the wrong lesson, not caution, but hesitation. The archive's partial success bent the agency inward. Technicians redesigned Mirror to include continuous biometric authentication, ensuring artificial oversight on human decisions. Faith in instinct, the element that once defined Mossad's velocity, was replaced by algorithmic veto. For Eitan, promotion came quietly. Operational integrity under duress, they said in the citation. But nothing felt like integrity. He knew contingency 2 would remain stamped across internal servers forever, a phantom abort signal he ignored because its timing felt wrong. Sometimes at night he replayed that exact sound, the metallic distortion of copy partial, precede contingency 2, the moment when trust and interference became indistinguishable. Somewhere in between, and leadership stopped questioning whether they controlled the mission or the mission controlled them. In intelligence circles worldwide, whispers framed the operation as flawless daring, how Mossad stole an entire nuclear archive in one night. Even allies repeated it with reverence, but within the few who'd lived it, the phrasing felt like mockery. They hadn't stolen clarity, they'd inherited ambiguity. Tehran adapted swiftly. Within a year, Iran's counterintelligence model evolved beyond preemption to predictive mimicry, building false information trails precisely engineered to lure every major service. They learned from the breach more effectively than the breachers did. Mossad, meanwhile, tightened secrecy around communication, moving field transmissions into analog relay only, regressing decades in protocol to prevent replication of the same trap. Progress became retreat. For Eitan personally, fallout arrived slower but relentless. He couldn't walk past any digital interface without counting delays, 1/2 second lag between key press and response, one green light that lingered. Every small hesitation recalled that misread lock at the start, the mistake that might have sent the first signal. He transferred voluntarily to analytical division. On paper, reassignment. In truth, exile. He still carried one photograph from Tehran, out-of-focus shot of the vault corridor taken seconds before power restored. In it, faint heat signatures overlay the walls. 5 shapes, not 4. A figure they never identified. Perhaps an echo, perhaps another operative. Perhaps evidence of who had been watching all along. And sometimes he thought about destroying it, but he never did. Proof didn't feel like closure, it felt like endurance. The institutional narrative closed eventually, replaced by diplomatic theater and public shadows. The world moved on to the next revelation. Inside the agency, the Operations Debrief Archive carried one line redacted under every reported header. A blank space where confirmation should have been. Operator identity verification, indeterminate. The mission ended long ago, but its uncertainty survived, replicating in every briefing, every hesitation before command approval, every technician second-guessing signal integrity. Mossad had proven it could reach anywhere, but not that it could return clean, and that, more than what they took, became the truest legacy of that night. Sometimes operations end with silence, not victory. Sometimes disappearance is the price of precision. Hidden ops will return, unraveling the mission's history calls success, but agents remember as survival.